Hey everybody, this is Brian here. This is going to be a top 10 video on health related topics. We're going to be talking about interim hobbies and activities. Things such as epilepsy can unfortunately cause injuries spontaneously. You may not be able to partake in your normal range of hobbies. So I think that this video, um, for people like me who may have lost their range of hobbies, I fell on my hand during a regular seizure, and all of a sudden I have trouble playing guitar. I have trouble drawing. I have trouble writing poetry or other stories. It's just difficult since I got my hand all taped up. And so if you have an injury that's much more severe than I do, or if you just are unable to do your regular range of hobbies because of health issues. This is a wide variety of suggestions for people who are in varying states of physical restraint, whether you can't move or whether you're in the hospital. I think that there's going to be something on here that can help you. I think that this list will be very helpful regardless of what physical state of limitation you may be in. One thing that you could do is to start a new collection of CDs, magazines, vintage records, sports memorabilia, or just a few starting places. Uh, I had a beanbag collection at one point, a Beanie Baby collection. I still have a Beanie Baby in my window that's holding a little guitar like Hendrix. I even put it left-handed. Just stuff you're a fan of. My best friend, for example, my best friend collects Godzilla merchandise and he collects anime stuff too. Um, you could collect things that are uh, from something you're just a fan of. Number two on here is something music related, which is to try learning the specific instrument of harmonica. Try listening for beginners to artists such as Little Walter or Helen Wolf. And I think that this use is simply like a hand and it uses your mouth. So if you have very many physical injuries, this may be something that you can still do even if you're kind of all taped up, I hope you feel better. But this may be something that you can still do even if you're kind of in a limited physical state of abilities. Number three, if you're able to move around a teeny bit more, but still maybe have back problems or maybe you dislocated a hip if you're a little older, um, try gardening. This is something that's laid back and mellow in the meantime as your body heals and you move back towards your regular range of hobbies. You know, for example, easy to care for plants are marigolds. I would suggest those air climbing plants like the succulents. You know, Spider plants are also really good. I have a whole like little garden of plants in my window, and my mom is also very into gardening too. So this is something you can do um, if you have a little bit more ability to move around. Like I said, I'm going to try to put a range of things on here, regardless of how you feel. I hope there's something on here for you. Number four on here. If you're laying in bed and I was in the hospital for a week, getting all sorts of tests and exams when I first got epilepsy, and I felt like I was very restrained, almost I was being held back almost from the normal amount of things I like to do. Like I was typically very active before I got sick. I like to walk for many miles and many hours to different places around the town just on a daily basis, just for fun, just for exercise. Um, but if you're unable to go out like that and you're kind of in a secluded state, kind of like I, I stay home on most days. I don't mean secluded as in like from people in general, but like if you don't go out into the community too much, then this is something for you, I guess. Number four is to start to read a series. One of the best tips I can give you if you're in bed or severely injured is to try and become involved in a lengthy book series. Reading is something that we as Americans don't do often enough as we could nowadays. So when you're physically held back, a good way to entertain yourself and make up for things that aren't in the cards currently is to begin a lengthy series of books. There's going to be a lot there. if you go deep into it, there's going to be hours of entertainment, and you could reread chapters and passages that you aren't sure of the meaning of, and you need to get a little bit more understanding, and or you just want to reread it like re-listening to a song on loop. An alternate, if you find that too overwhelming, is to begin a series of manga or of comics. Perhaps read one lengthy single novel. Like in high school, I read the Odyssey. That took a hell of a long time. So it's a good thing to do when you're kind of laying there and you feel like you can't do too much. Number five on here is to begin learning to speak. What I mean is like like a speaker. My cousin, for example, is an inspirational guy. He's very inspirational. He overcame physical handicaps from a major car accident when he was a young man, and when he was healing, he endeavored to become a motivational speaker, like the TED Talk people, for example. Practice talking more confidently, to someone you already are somebody you already love or somebody you already know. So an audience of strangers won't seem as scary. When I was going towards my final exam in my music class in high school, I was terrified of performing in front of an audience of people I had never seen before. And that I had never played guitar in front of them, and I is what I really mean to say. Um, and so I actually had to practice playing in front of family members for a while, so I was able to actually get my song, which was actually Stairway to Heaven, very creatively off in front of the audience, and I actually managed to get an applause. So begin learning to speak and speak more confidently. So perhaps maybe you could tell your story of the difficulties that you faced some days to other people. Others certainly feel alone and often unhelped out there in the world. So let them know that they aren't alone. Number six is something that a wider variety of people could partake in, even if you aren't facing an injury from illness, such as a seizure or a fall. Which is old or classical films and cinema. Begin to watch and learn more about classical films. It can go beyond just TV land. This is especially good if you're a person of limited mobility. You could become well versed and knowledgeable about something new while unable to partake in your normal set of hobbies. This won't require much moving around, so no matter what state of injury you're in, it won't exclude you. Um, it's also wide in its range of possible directions to go in, depending on your taste. Anything from like Power Rangers all the way to like BBC documentaries. There's a lot to watch out there. There's also a lot to learn about the history and culture of these things as well. You can learn about the lives of the actors who participated in the filming, or the voice actors, the directors. You can go a lot farther into the hobby of classic cinema than just watching Gilligan's Island reruns on TV Land, which is something that I always loved to do growing up. I have that whole series on DVD. Number seven on here is to begin singing. If you love art and are held back from participating in it, like I am from playing guitar, uh, by injury or illness, try using your voice more. It's likely something that you still have access to. You know what I mean? I have a playlist of songs, for example, that are in my rather limited range vocally, and I try to sing them whenever I can. This is something that you can do in almost any state because it's artistic and it's like a personal karaoke show. Make a small YouTube playlist of your own, whether your range is like Johnny Cash or like Joan Baez, you know what I mean? With someone with higher range. The other tip I wanted to give you is to avoid self-consciousness if you go out of key or miss a note. It's not fair to compare ourselves, especially as beginners, to professionals. Reinforce yourself even when you struggle. Don't strain your voice. Also, stay in a healthy range so you don't get hoarse. Whether you are musically very, very experienced and talented, and maybe you grew up singing in like a church choir, for example, or something, um, or in a band like in high school. Um, Whether you're musically in the range or not. Explore it as a hobby, and don't beat yourself up if you struggle. Treat it as a new hobby when the old ones are simply too hard to partake in. Number eight is to get deeper into a new type of music. If you're currently unable to get into your regular hobbies, try to become an expert on your least favorite type of music possible and to learn all of its idiosyncrasies. And I know that may not sound easy. You may have lambasted it before, but once you know its details and history, it'll become a lot easier to judge it fairly and objectively. I'm not a fan of modern music, as if you couldn't tell from my playlist and from my countdowns. But to take my own advice, I'm planning to post a video on my personal least favorite artist as a surprise special. I'll listen to their entire catalog and I'll read whatever I could find on them on the internet. I'm not going to go to the library and check out their biography or something. But I think it'll be fun getting to know them, so I'm no longer basing my opinion on ignorance. Um, I hope my ears will forgive me as I become a believer or something. Number nine on here is going to be dioramas. Build a small new world in front of you. I think that this is a fantastic hobby. I collect wrestling action figures. Here's one of wrestler known as Vader. And I've built little worlds in front of me before. For instance, I built a wrestling diorama where I went as far as putting up a ring barricade, and I used my least favorite wrestling action figures as like a crowd as like a crowd figure. Like anyone who had like an arm broken off, or anyone who was like the Miz, or just a wrestler I really didn't like. I put in the crowd and in the audience, and it was a way to make use of all of my figures actually. It was pretty cool. The ring barricade surrounded the commentary table and the ring itself. An awesome thing I've also learned is that there's many large online communities present for diorama items. You can find websites that often sell merchandise correlating uh, to specific hobby, like you know what I mean, like such as the wrestling fan community. There's also like a wrestling fan figure community, like where you can buy scale rings, or you can buy toy steel chairs to put under your ring. You could buy breakaway tables. Those are things I frequently order. Anyways, it'll require little of you physically if you are kept from your normal hobbies. Whether you went with action figures, whether you went with building things with Legos, or whether you went with scientific dioramas, it's a malleable possibility. You could do whatever you want with it. Um, Number 10 on here is going to be poetry. This is something that's helped me for the last 15 years plus of my life. I began when I was 10, and now I'm 25, so I guess uh, a little over 15 years now. I've had trouble writing lately because of my hand, but I've went so far as to actually upload some of my poetry to this channel, and you can find it in my earlier videos. However, depending on what your injury is, you may still be served beautifully by the expression and simple vocabulary improvements born of writing regularly. Try different formats beside the simple AABB type poem, where each line kind of rhymes with the one before it, and then you switch to a new one. Anyways, switch to things such as like a sonnet or a villanelle. Try to learn from poets from the past, such as Edgar Allan Poe, for inspiration. One final tip in the vein of poetry that I can give you is to try to learn a new word each day as habitually as you brush your teeth or eat breakfast. It'll give you more to work with in your writing. It will give you a whole new toolbox of material and resources during a period that I think is typically very emotionally difficult. The period of losing access to some of your hobbies because of injury or because of the onset of a new chronic illness, perhaps. It can make you feel like you've lost some uh, part of yourself. I think that this list, therefore, will help exponentially because it's really easy to feel empty or held back when you have to find a new slate of activities and hobbies. Depending on who you are as a person, I doubt that you'll like all of these things, but I think several of the things in this diverse mixture should help you find your way out of that rut faster. I sure hope so, you know, because it took me a while to kind of find my new self, the new Brian, if you will, um, after I lost access to several of my old hobbies, such as I don't really like to stand near the stove because I'm afraid I might have a drop attack. So one thing that I can't really do as much as I used to is to cook. And I guess some people may not be afraid of that fear, but it worries me because I'm at risk for uh, a drop attack at any point. Anyways, so whether you've lost your like entire range of mobility, or whether you're just looking for something new to do, I think this will help you whether you're a member of the chronically ill community, or whether you have faced the onset of a late onset of illness. Whether you're dealing with things from aging. I think that even if you're just a regular person, some of these things will be really helpful as new hobbies, to maybe breathe a breath of fresh air into your lives. Maybe you're just looking for something new to do to bust out of that kind of feeling of stagnation. Um, I've certainly felt that way at points before I was a person with epilepsy. Anyways, I love you guys because you're you, and I hope that you have a beautiful day. Um, as we head towards winter and a new season in general, the later part of the year, this year's moved by so quickly, in my opinion. Some people may feel a little different about that. Maybe it's past like being drugged by a tire or something, drugged really slow. Maybe the year's gone by painfully slow, but I love you guys for who you are regardless, and I always will. So hopefully this video helped you to find your way out of feeling like a shell and to feel like you're full again. Anyways, I hope if you've lost any part of you that you find the new you. Peace out, guys, and good luck on your way through things.